which is an incredible initiative, and just a testimony to the continuing expansion and growth of the world of Shlichus. It's head of Gimel Thomas, head of his Yorkshire. And I hope it's apparent and obvious to everyone that we're here today, not just because it's a practical thing, because a lot of people came into the yard site, so why not schedule a gathering when people are in town? But I hope, even if there were some practical considerations like that, I hope everyone understands also thematically that what we're doing here is very, very, very much in line with preparing ourselves for this yard site and for aligning ourselves, realigning ourselves, and rededicating ourselves to Rebbe's vision and mission of reaching out with love to every individual. And that's really what this is all about. So, first of all, some major disclaimers. I don't really know anything about the medical world very much, other than I've been a patient a couple of times. I don't really have any specific training in that area. And I don't even really have any formal training in chaplaincy, meaning specifically the rabbi stuff as it pertains to hospitals and other institutions and facilities. And I don't know if what I'm going to tell you is going to be consistent with what the experts in chaplaincy teach, or if it's going to be in opposition to it, or if it's going to be so completely different that it won't even agree or disagree with what they say. I don't know. You'll let me know afterwards. I would actually be somewhat curious. There's a story, well-known story, to Chassidim at least, well-known, about the Rebbe Maharash, the fourth Rebbe of Chabad. And he would, as the Rebbeim, as the Rebbes of Chabad would do, he would entertain people in one-on-one audiences known as Chassidus. And the Chassidus format was pretty much open. What does that mean? It really is whatever's on your heart, you can come in and you have an opportunity to connect to somebody who is a mentor, a guide, a teacher, and some people would come in asking for spiritual guidance. Some people would come in talking about personal problems. People would ask for blessings. People would ask for advice. And each person who would come in was a whole different story and a whole different world. So the Rebbe Maharash was taking people into personal audiences, and he was sweating, and apparently sweating quite profusely. And there was a Chassidus, an attendant, who had the chutzpah to remark about this and make some type of a judgment or an observation that it wasn't proper fitting, something like that. The Rebbe Maharash addressed it. You know, normally when people make stupid comments, the smartest thing to do is ignore it. But if that's what I found. But if the Rebbe Maharash would have ignored this stupid comment, then we wouldn't have this beautiful story. So maybe that's why the Rebbe Maharash did that. It's like, he says to the guy, imagine if you had to change your entire outfit, all of your clothing. You have to get completely undressed and then get dressed again. It's exhausting physically. You have to exert yourself. Now imagine you doing that several times in an hour. You're taking off an entire suit of clothing and you're putting on an entire new outfit. And you do this, you get undressed and you get dressed, and you get undressed and you get dressed. Obviously, it's exhausting, and the person could sweat. So he said, how much more so when somebody comes into Yechidus, and I'm not just getting physically dressed like them. It's much more than that. I'm having to invest myself in this person's consciousness, their perspective, their backstory, their experiences. And yeah, so that's why I sweat. At any rate, so that's the story. To really, and you say, what does it have to do with us? We're not Rebbes and we're not Kinus. Well, Lubavitcher Rebbe, Jonathan Sacks Olshon said that was he good leaders make followers, great leaders make leaders, the Rebbe made leaders. So that's the safe way of saying it. I would say it even more extremely that throughout history, the Rebbe's made Chassidim, the Rebbe made Rebbes. It said actually, that every single Jew is an Admur, is a Rebbe. Shliach Sha'odam Kamosei, the Rebbe deputized a generation to be Rebbe's message at the final dollars. Sunday, the day before his stroke, the Rebbe told Gabriel Aram from Lifestyles magazine from Toronto, his message for his 90th birthday is that 90 is tzaddik, and the message is every single Jew is a tzaddik. In fact, Gabriel Aram then asked, okay, then what's the message for the non-Jewish world? Because he was writing in Lifestyles magazine, it's not a Jewish magazine. So that was the same message. With the Sheva Mitzvahs, through their 7 Noachide laws, same message. So basically, every single human being is the tzaddik. So the Rebbe made Rebbes. So a story about a Rebbe, a story about Yechidus isn't just, wow, that's about a Rebbe, that's about Yechidus, it's really a story about us. How do you make yourself useful to anyone? My understanding is you cannot make yourself useful to someone if you don't allow yourself to do that mind meld where you are, if I can speak in spooky ways, I'm not such a spiritual person really, but there is a certain channeling that happens where it goes beyond sympathy and it becomes empathy, or even beyond empathy and becomes identification, and you're actually feeling what the other person is feeling. You're not observing someone else going through something, you are actually experiencing it from their eyes. I have found whenever I can be most helpful to somebody, it's an extremely intense process, which is why I try to avoid it as much as possible, because it is depleting and exhausting. And often I will hurt more than the other person because they've spent a lifetime building up defense mechanisms to their pain, and I'm just feeling it for the first time. So I'll cry and they won't. But what I found is that when we're really, truly making ourselves available to people, there is that merging of one consciousness into the other, and it's intense. Now, I don't know, maybe they'll tell you, because I told you, I don't know what they say in the chaplaincy training programs. Maybe they'll tell you, don't ever do that. They say, don't do that.
That's what they tell you there.
Say, don't do it. Okay. And so don't do that. But
do it.
But do it. Yeah. I'm telling you that I'm not such a smart guy, so I don't know how to be helpful to people without doing that. It's not like I have so many answers. See, here's the thing. People think that I'm smart. They think that I have good advice. I don't. What I do know how to do, and I think everyone knows how to do, is meld with the other person so that you can start to see things through their eyes and merely tell them back what they've told you. And all of a sudden they say, you're so wise. And of course I'm wise. I'm telling you what you told me. People have their best advice. People are intuitively wise. People have their own answers. You know, the famous story that Jonathan Sacks says that Lubavitcher never changed the course of my life without speaking or writing a single word. I wrote him a letter, should I become the next chief rabbi of Great Britain? What did the Rebbe do? The Rebbe would often write on your letter and send your letter back to you. So the Rebbe knew editing marks. The Rebbe worked for Kahos when he came to America. The Rebbe was proficient in how to make the editing marks. So he took Jonathan Sachs's letter, he circled the should and the I, the transposition thing that you do in editing. He just flipped I should, and then he crossed out the squiggly part of the question mark to make it a period, and just sent it back to him. I should become the next chief rabbi of Great Britain. So he said that I didn't say or write a single word. He took my question, and threw it right back at me as an answer. And I really think that's so often the case. In fact, I would even say you cannot teach anybody anything new. You can only teach them what they already know. Well, if they already know, what's the point of teaching it to them? Because they don't believe it. They don't believe it. They discount their own wisdom. So we give their wisdom back to them. It's like what you do when you say, excuse me, sir, you're Jewish, you'd like to put on tefillin. Tefillin already belongs to this Jew. You're only returning to them what already belongs to them. Oh, you gave me my Yiddishkeit. I didn't give you nothing. This is yours. I didn't invent it. It's not my idea. I'm just witnessing, facilitating a process of you being authentic to your true self. And I think that that's what real advice is and real counseling is. You can't tell anybody anything new. You can't convince anybody something that they don't already believe. But what you can do is meld with them, start to see things through their eyes, hear the truths that they are saying, and then say those truths back to them, and be comforted, and they will experience clarity. And you're not telling them anything new. Really, all learning is discovery, in the real sense of uncovering something that's already there. I mean, we know, according to our tradition, that all truth is in the Torah, and that every soul learned the entire Torah before it came to the world. So every soul came to the world knowing the entire truth. So anything you learn, anything you'll ever learn that's true, you already knew. Right? So all learning is a process of just uncovering that which you already knew. Or I forget who said this, but he said, all truth is plagiarism. Only lies are original. Yeah. So what do? You're witnessing somebody's truth and you're saying it back to them. That's why that reflective listening thing, which in Kabbalah we call malchus. It's like the moon reflecting the light of the sun. It's also called a feminine quality. But the Rebbe said to bring Mashiach, men have to also be feminine. Because we're not going to bring Mashiach by conquering the world. We're going to bring Mashiach by coaxing out the divinity that's already within the world. Which is similar to what I was saying before. That you can't force anything new, but you can bring out whatever's already there. So the reflective listening. Don't say any Kedushin. Nobody needs your Kedushin. Nobody needs to hear you say anything new. They just need you to reflect back to them what they've already told you and they've discounted.
Do you reframe?
Reframe? I mean, I might use different words than they're using.
While you're reflecting back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, I might use my own vocabulary. Yeah, but to me, it's not such a deliberate thing. It's more like I'm having a conversation with you, but I'm only using the words and the ideas that you've given me to use. It's like Scrabble. You only have the tiles that you dealt, and you have to figure out to make a word out of it.
People don't ask you, can you give me some wisdom, Rabbi?
Yeah, they do. Can you give me some wisdom, Rabbi? Yeah, that's a very common question. Can you give me some wisdom, Rabbi? And that's a trap.
Wow.
Because how
Wow.
many times, and they might not bust you, right? Sometimes they're too polite to do it. But later on, they'll say, that rabbi said something very insensitive. Well, you set me up. Like, you told me to be profound. I just did what you just told me. You wanted the monkey to dance, and I did it. You said be profound, and I was profound. And then you're going to say later on, yeah, it's called read the room. Know your audience. And the safest way, and it's not just playing it safe, it's also about being effective. The safest and also most effective way of reading the room is just work with what you're being given. Only work with the energy that's being provided. Don't think about it like this. This person is going through something intense, possibly terrifying. And then you're going to come in and change the energy in the room. You're going to bring in a whole new factor. Like, things are unstable enough. Things are uncertain enough. Like, all of a sudden, this guy's going to come in. And even if you put off a good energy, even if it's charisma and it's warmth, it's like, you know what? Fit in. Melt into what's happening. Become part of it. Don't try to change the tone. We're not there to make ourselves the center of attention, even if we can justify it by saying, well, I've distracted them from their worry and their pain. Yeah. So if they want that, they can order a clown. Sometimes like clowns come to the hospital. They want distraction, they can get a clown. But some clowns do magic tricks, some do balloon animals. But I don't think we're there to be performers. I don't think we're there to change the energy or change the tone. I think we're there to be extremely vocal, to be transparent, and to read the room. And in case you're asking yourself, well, what value is there in that? What I'm trying to tell you is that when you can say back to somebody the truth that they already know, they will believe that you are the smartest person in the world. That's not why we do it. We don't do it to be considered smart. But I'm just telling you that the wisdom that they will most appreciate is just reflective listening. So even if you have some type of I almost mentioned reframing. So let's say you have a vart. Let's say you have a dvar Torah. If you came in absolutely hell-bent that I've got this great vart and I'm going to share it with these people, 99.9% chance that it's just not the appropriate message. But let's say in the process of authentically reacting to you in the moment and matching your energy, one of the ways I can reframe the truth that you've already told me is by couching it in the words of a story or a metaphor or a partial lesson. Yeah, that's good rabbinics. That's very good. By the way, that's true not even for chaplaincy. That's true for if you're getting up in front of a regular congregation and giving a drasha. If you're getting up there to talk about what you want to talk about, have fun. You're supposed to get up there and figure out what the people are already thinking about, what's already on their heart, and what's on their mind, and then try to say to them what they're already thinking about, but maybe couch it in terms that are rabbinic. So turn it into a partial lesson. Everybody's thinking about whatever right now. Oh, we have a lesson about that in the Parsha, but not the reverse, where I really want to say this lesson from the Parsha. Oh, so let me figure out what human experience I could tie to that, and make that my excuse for saying the Parsha lesson that I wanted to say anyway. You know the expression, "Ein simcha katoras haspekis," which means there is no greater joy than removal of doubt, or clarifying that which was once in doubt is the greatest joy. So if I were to ask you, where does it say that? So what we always do. I mean, can we close the door? Can we close the door? We're working on it. I'm sure it's not distracting you guys, but it distracts me. Okay, thank you. So if somebody says, where does it say "Ein simcha katoras haspekis"? You know what we always do. We say it says in the Talmud. The Talmud's big enough, you got a chance, right? It's not in the Talmud. You know where it's from? It's actually from the Chassidus Taub, which is a commentary on Nach, and specifically on a pasuk in Mishlei, in King Solomon's wisdom. And there's a verse over there. It says, "Ma'arei nayim yisamach leiv shmua teva tidash notza." Many of you may be familiar with that pasuk. Many of you may say that pasuk at least 3 times a day. On Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and Yom Tov, you may say that pasuk 4 times a day, because it is one of the psukim of the Rebbe's name. It starts with a mem, and it ends with a schloss mem, with the final mem. That is the pasuk from Menachem. Ma'arei nayim yisamach leiv shmua teva tidash notza. Muscle memory. Okay, it's a joke. You guys are late. You're laughing. Okay. What does it mean? It means when you clarify, when you enlighten someone's eyes, give them the ability to see things clearly. Samach lei, that makes their heart happy. Why? So this David says, "Ein simcha katoras haspekis." Because what's joy is when you clarify something that was in doubt. So really, what are we doing? We're giving people certainty. We're giving them clarity. And that's called ma'arei nayim. It's called being able to see. Not physical vision. We're talking about mental vision. And the teitzah, the result of that, is yisamach leiv, it'll make them happy. That's, in a lot of ways, that's the Rebbe. Clarity. I'm not against smiling, telling jokes, and putting people at ease. It's very nice. And sometimes that's the milsa d'bichosa that's necessary, the chitzenius hashpah, in order to get them to trust you. So that's part of the process. But the main benefit is ma'arei nayim yisamach leiv. The main benefit is to give them clarity. And clarity just means to be able to see things. Doesn't mean to show them something new. It means to allow them to see what's there. There's a story the Frierdiker Rebbe was once asked by Askonim when he was in Vienna, he was in Austria. So these Askonim, very Yakische German Jews, Austrian Jews, They asked the Vedic, they met him in a hotel and they asked him, what's the Ufta Chassidus? What did Chassidus add to Yiddishkeit? So that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't proposition, because if you say, here's what Chassidus added to Yiddishkeit. Chodesh Hashem in a Torah, Sam Sefer says, give me that old time religion, don't innovate. Sorry, we don't need any spin-off religions. Happened a couple times already to Judaism, it didn't work out too well. Don't give me any new Kiddushin. On the other hand, if you say Chassidus added nothing to Yiddishkeit, oh, great. So then that's what I have already. So then I don't need Chassidus. So the Vedic Rebbe, they were in a hotel lobby. Well, it's fancy. I don't know if you've ever been to Vienna, but gorgeous architecture over there. A lot of Baroque architecture. And so he pointed out that the carvings on the wall, like the crown molding of the wall, have these flowers, these ornate carvings. And he asked them, you see the carvings of the flowers on the crown molding? So they say, yeah, we see them. So he said, did you see them a minute ago? So they said, no, we weren't looking at that a minute ago. He said, was it there a minute ago? They said, of course, it's been here the whole time. So that's what Chassidus. You don't bring anything new into the room that wasn't already there. Chassidus is simply Ma'er Einayim. So, to whatever extent we can be clear, transparent vessels and not try to add anything new to an already maxed out situation, especially when you're talking about an intense situation. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of emotion. We don't want to bring anything new. We just want to allow there to be some clear vision about what there is already. And we do that through empathizing thoroughly and saying back to them their truth calmly and with clarity and with certainty. And that makes people happy, truly happy. That is Samach Lev. Okay, so that's the Avodah. That's what we're supposed to do. Or that's what we're not supposed to do. Do not do that, because you're not supposed to do that. But let's say you do that. That's what I do. And I'm not going to stop doing it because it's all I know how to do, and I don't even like doing that. I'm not going to train myself to do something different way.
Why is something to do?
What?
Who says not to do?
That's what I was told, that they say don't do that. So, what? That's what I was told. I was just told that. No, you let me astray.
In medical training, they tell you about the times that if you're too compassionate, you're too emotional about it, get too connected to the feeling, you can get burnt. No, you never heard this?
And you're not to bring work home with you, but they want to in the present.
So you're heading exactly in the direction where I wanna go. Again, I don't know what they really say to do or not to do. Okay. But I'm telling you that Yechidus is getting dressed and undressed. And being there for someone means being them for as long as you're in the room. But being them with clarity and certainty and calmness so that you can say their truth back to them in a soothing way. If that is the case, then how does this not completely consume you and overtake you? And the answer is a really simple answer to say. But, and to understand. It's very simple to understand as well. I can say it, you can understand it, and that is, well, if it's just a matter of getting dressed, so then get undressed and get dressed in some new clothes. Just like you put on that outfit, now put on another outfit. You know the biggest obstacle to that? Like this dog's chained in the front yard, can't. Okay, move around. I don't know about the camera. Anyone even watching that? Yeah. Am I out of frame?
Now you are.
Am I out of frame?
Perfect.
Am I out of frame?
No, you're good, you're good.
Okay, so I got about this much space. We do the bathroom dance. Okay. What?
Take your hat.
Take my hat off?
Yeah, better, yeah.
Okay.
Give it to the dog.
All right.
Shadow.
So if we are most helpful by putting ourselves into the clothing, that means the perspective and the emotions and the worldview and the experiences of the person that we're trying to help. And we're not trying to tell them anything new. We're just trying to reframe to them the truths that they already believe, but they need to hear it said clearly with conviction in a calm way. How do we not take that home with us? How do we not allow that to overtake us? How do we not let that consume us? And the simple answer is, just like you put on their clothing, now put on yours. You know the biggest obstacle to that? The biggest problem is when you don't even own your own set of clothing. How can I put on my own clothing and go back to being me? I don't have a me. In fact, doing what I do as a vocation is the greatest holy excuse for never having developed a personality, because I don't have to know who I am. I'm there for you. This is the Lubavitcher disease. This is the Lubavitcher disease, that because I'm there for everybody else, I don't know who I am. And therefore, when I learn a Maimon Chassidus, even if I can repeat the words, even if I can translate them into English, I have no idea how to emotionally connect with the subject, because I don't even know what I feel. I don't have opinions, I don't have feelings, I don't have proclivities. I'm not allowed to, because I'm supposed to be thoughtful. So Vittel does not allow me to have a self. All I have is my service to others. What I'm telling you is, I'm not describing anyone in this room. I'm just describing somebody else that confided in me.
What's the term? Getting addicted to other people's trauma?
Yeah, getting addicted to other people's,
Is it term?
yeah, it's called a codependent. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, codependent. Right. So basically, there's a joke. They say, what's the last thing a codependent sees before he dies? Somebody else's life flashes before his eyes. Right? Yeah, so that's the Shlichus disease, is codependency, where instead of living my life, or in order to avoid living my own life, I live other people's lives. And that's not a good thing. Because Hashem made you and he sent your unique neshama to the world for a unique shlichus. And yeah, that shlichus involves what you do for others, but it also involves you being you. And it also involves you having a personality and having a unique mind. And you have a unique way of thinking and a unique way of understanding Chassidus, and you have a unique emotional palette. According to Sheidish Nishmascha, you're a unique person. You have a personality and strengths and weaknesses and challenges. So what's the answer here? How do we be a clear conduit, a blank slate for others, and then not let that take over who we are? The answer is you have to know who you are. And when you're done doing it for others, now go do it for yourself. Classic example of where you see this, just so you can understand more what I'm describing. If you're learning a mimer, and the only time you get excited is when you say, oh, I could use that. I could say that to someone. That would inspire somebody. Yeah, that's very nice. But, and that's good. I'm not being shoyl of that. I'm not to negate that. But what about the line that you read in the mimer? So, oh, that's what I needed. That's what I was looking for. That was the clarity that I needed in my life. You look at me like, what? What the hell are you talking about? What? Yeah? No, you're agreeing or
No,
disagreeing?
I agree, I'm just, I have. I'm a little-
Oh, it was, I thought it was like,
No.
what tree did you fall out of? Listen, when we're learning Chassidus, we learn Chassidus to help us with our own issues, to help us with our own spiritual journey and our own development. So if the only time you get excited when you're learning Chassidus is when you say, oh, that's a vort, I could use that one. So then who are you? Where are you? Right, the Kotzker said, As ich bin ich, weil du bist du, und du bist du, weil ich bin nicht dich, und du bist nicht du. Right? Aber als ich bin ich, weil ich bin ich, und du bist du, weil du bist du, ich bin ich, und du bist du. If I am only me, because of you, meaning my only self-concept, my only source of having an identity is that you have validated me. That's codependence. And you're not even you, because the only value you have to me, I'm using you. You know how I'm using you? At your service, right? And that's the most insidious way of using somebody, where you're using them by serving them. But well, let me finish the thought. You're using them by serving them. And you're using them in the most hardcore game of using somebody, because what are you trying to get from them? $1 million? No, much more. You're trying to get from them permission to exist. Tell me that I have permission to exist. If I'll be good enough to you and sweet enough to you, and I'll neglect my family enough for you, and I'll take your calls in the middle of the night for you, then eventually you will look at me and say, you're allowed to exist. So that's a real hardcore game of using. And so you're not you, I'm using you. And I'm surely not me, because my only sense of identity is what I get by serving you, which is really using you. And the whole thing is sick all around. But if I am I, because I am I have a personality, I know who I am, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. You know, the Rabbi Marash, again, mentioned the Marash earlier, told the Chassidus Chassidus that he should fast. And he said, in case you think fasting means not eating, what it really means is that you should think every day about yourself. Call the cheshbon and nefesh, cheshbon tzedek, moral inventory. Think about yourself. You're no good to anybody if you don't know who you are. And if you don't have your own personal relationship with Hashem. How are you going to be the guy who arranges and brokers people's spiritual growth if you don't have your own spiritual path and your own relationship with Hashem? And when I say your own relationship with Hashem, I mean some aspect of your relation with Hashem that does not include service to others, even though it's a huge part of your Avodas Hashem. Avos Yisrael and Avos Hashem go hand in hand. So obviously a huge part of your expression of love for Hashem is treating his kids with love and compassion. Yes. But do you have a relation with Hashem independent from actively being of service to others? Okay, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
So in one aspect in the story originally that you were talking about, the Red Barash, one of the reasons he was trying to
The changing clothes.
he's got to get back into his own clothes, to be in his own position, to be able to guide that other person or reflect back. He had to go back into his own status to be able then to reflect back to himself. Not just being there and then in that person's identity, but coming back into his own status. But the thing that more to the point of what you're saying is, but being a shliach and being a chassid, the idea of the language that we've always been taught about bittul,
Yeah.
and the shliach is uncommonly. So where is the individual?
Where is the individual?
We've been taught,
Yeah, I know.
and it's been
Yeah. So I want to tell you something.
put up as an inspiration.
Okay. The Lubavitcher Rebbe did a lot of new things, different things. I think one of the things we have to understand properly is that Chof Chassidus is the Hachana to Gimel Tammuz. And now I'm going to speak till now I've been trying to say everything in English, and I think this is going to become the real Fabrengen part. But I'm not even, let's see how much I'm encumbered if I try to translate everything. You know what? what the heck? I'm gonna try to say it in English. The 20th day of the third month of the year, the month of Sivan. That's the day that Rebbe came to America twice. 1941 with Rebbe Chaim Mushkin escaping the Holocaust, and then when after the war, the Rebbe went to Paris to get his mother, Rebbe Tzimchana. Rebbe came back to America with her, and they couldn't even time when the boats would arrive, by the way. So it wasn't even that the Rebbe chose to come back on that day. It was Hashgacha Pratis, it was divine providence. So the Rebbe came to America twice on that day. The Rebbe came to America twice, and both times it was on that day. The Rebbe spoke Toshin Nun Aleph that this date, the 28th of Sivan, is a Yom Zakai. It's a very propitious day, and that's why this thing happened on that day. You guys don't think that's crazy that the Rebbe came to America twice and it was the same date both times? That's not crazy. That is crazy. The Rebbe spoke about being a Yom Zakai, a propitious day, that the nature and the character, the spiritual energy of that day is such that such things would happen on that day. And what is the spiritual nature of that day? Well, 28 in Hebrew is Chav Ches, which means koyach, which means strength. Also numerically, it's 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3. And then when you have the entirety of 27, you get to 28. So it's 3 times 3 times 3 plus 1. That's 28. So the 28th day of Sivan. What's Sivan? Sivan is the month when Torah was given. Why? Torah is the ultimate 3. The Gemara in Shabbos speaks about, that really is in the Talmud, about the 3s that are associated with Matan Torah, that basically you have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. You have one point, you have a separate point, and then you have the all-encompassing point. So we have the statement, Ein Malade, there's nothing but God. We have the statement, Bereshit bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, God made a world. Which one is it? Comes Torah and says they're both true. That is what Torah is. Torah is a truth. In Kabbalah, you call it Tiferes, Kava, and Tzoi. But Torah is the truth. It's big enough to include opposites. So is it about spiritual or is it about material? Is it about the infinite or is it about the finite? Is it about creator or creation? What's the answer? Yes. So the ultimate expression of the melding of top and bottom was when the Rebbe repositioned and came to Chatzikadra in the lower hemisphere. Eretz Yisrael, everywhere you go, from any point on the globe to Israel, you're making aliyah, you're going up. So I know we've all been culturally programmed to imagine a globe with the North Pole on the top. That's not a Jewish concept. Really, you should have the globe with the Holy Land on top, and then everything on the other side is called underneath. So down under is not just Australia, it's also America. So the Rebbe said, using a mashal from the Alter Rebbe in Torah Or, Parshas Bereshis, the reason the soul comes to a body is to get leverage. The soul has to elevate the world and all of the worlds, even the highest heavens. In order to lift a building, you got to get up underneath. Alter Rebbe actually uses a Yiddish word, lever, lamed, yud, vav, vav, ein, resh, lever. A lever. So the Rebbe says there that coming to the lower hemisphere is an idea of leverage. Coming to the bottom hemisphere to lift up the entire world. Okay, so basically the last phase in bringing Mashiach is the American phase. What's the American phase? The American phase is rugged individualism. Whereas Bittul used to mean an avid. Now Bittul means a shliach. Shal Adam Kamaisai. The Bittul now is dignity, pride, and individualism, and critical thinking and creativity. One of the first shluchim to go out, Nachman Tzedek Shalom, he asked the Rebbe, when I get to London, what do I do? I signed away his life. That's the Bittul. That's the old style Bittul. Sign away your life. I'm going. One-way ticket. Okay. And then he asked the Rebbe, when I get there, what do I do? And the Rebbe said, keep your eyes open. You'll figure it out. Der Shvi is all about the American style. In this generation, we are all the Kinus Americans. And I'm sure you know this story. Moshe Feller tells the story to Abby Fabrengen about what Chaim Zelig told him. Herman Wouk. So Herman Wouk was born in the Bronx, a real American boy. And he was born in a modern Orthodox family, which was very, American Jewry was not very frum. So he was a rare breed. He was frum his whole life, Shemish his whole life, and one of the greatest American authors of the modern era. He was a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He wrote King Mutiny, Winds of War and Remembrance. So he was a real American icon and also a Fruma Yid. So anyways, born in the Bronx. So Herman Woke, speaking to the Rebbe in Yechidus, and says, with all due respect, I know these Americans. The Rebbe's from Nikolaev. He doesn't know Americans. I know Americans. They have their own minds. They don't like to be told what to do. You're going to tell them that, Nasa Ishmael just doesn't fly with Americans. You got to know the American temperament. So Herman Woke says this to the Rebbe says, I'll tell you about Americans. I love Americans. You can't tell them to do anything, but you can teach them to do everything. So really, and the Rebbe said it about American Jews, but like I said, in this generation, we're all American Jews. We can't be told to do anything. We don't work that way. Don't tell me what to do. Now I'll do the opposite. But you can inspire me and empower me and challenge me to conquer the world. Because if you believe in me, and if you love me, you respect me, and then you let me loose and tell me, now go figure it out on your own, I will rise to that challenge and I'll love it. So shlichus, I'm sorry, but the way that many of those who explain shlichus explained it, they were not as American as the Rebbe. They did not understand things properly. They tried to explain it in the old way of what is bittul tzimratim, get shot in the head, and then someone will replace you tomorrow. And that was, I'm not denigrating that, those people are amazing, but that was then, this is now. So the old way of bittul tzimratim was, you have no existence, you have, I'm not going to say names because I heard it from more than one mashpia, but what we were told is when Napoleon had to cross the river and he didn't have a bridge, he would tell the soldiers to march into the river and drown until the bodies of the drowned soldiers heaped up, and then the soldiers could walk on the dead bodies. And that's what a chassid is. And I believe that's what a chassid was. I'm not taking away from it. I'm not saying that they were wrong, God forbid. That was right. That was right then. Ner Shvi is the seventh generation. It's like the seventh day. It's like Shabbos. So something that was a mitzvah a minute before Shkia is a minute Torah a minute after Shkia. So if somebody comes to your house Friday afternoon and you cook for him, you make food, you do lametas malachas, that's a mitzvah. It's beautiful. But then a minute later, after Shabbos starts, you do the same exact act. Now it's Chil Shabbos, and it's totally wrong. So times change. So to answer your question, in Ner Shvi, the Rebbe wants Chassidim who have fully developed personalities. The Rebbe wants Chassidim who know how to talk about God in their own language, not just quoting the words from the page. The Rebbe wants Chassidim who have their own personal relationship with God. So that when you go and you do that, putting on the clothes of the person and losing yourself in them, you have a self to go back to afterwards. But if it's ich bin ich, weil du bist du, and I don't have an identity because I was told it's holy, and that's what the Rebbe wanted, that I should not have a personality, and that I'm using shlichus as my excuse to not know who I am. So, first of all, you're denigrating shlichus, but second of all, it's like, it doesn't even make you a good shliach to do it that way. So the bottom line is, Avodah, that we have to learn Chassidus, we have to learn it seriously, we have to figure out how it speaks to us. and how it talks to us cognitively. We have to find Chassidus more intellectually stimulating than YouTube pundits. And we have to find Chassidus more emotionally relevant than self-help books. And when we do that, then we have a self to go back to. Then we won't come home, walk through the door, and bring with us all of those stories that we were zeicher. Really, we were privileged to be there and to be helpful in those rooms where we were helping people. But that's where it has to end. And when we walk through the door and come home, then our children need a tati and our wives need a husband, and we have to know what it means, me, the husband, me, the tati, not just me, the religious codependent who has comforted himself not to have any self-knowledge because he says it's holy. Yeah.
You answered it in the beginning with our brother's question. Because if you're a codependent and your ruxin is validation, then I'm buffalo, I'm garnish,
Right.
because that I know my value, I gain it from you. And that's not the ruxin.
Right.
You're building your own.
Right.
codependent.
That's right. That's very good. Very well stated. That's right. Yeah. So you're using the shlichus to avoid going to therapy. You're moil behektish. That's what you're saying. more or less. That's called reframing. I'm just saying back to you what you said in my own language. Yeah. It's really an interesting dichotomy, what the Rebbe envisioned. The degree of selflessness and surrender coupled with intellectual and emotional depth. You learn a mimer from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is taking 7 generations of deep Chassidus and analyzing it and bringing it down to such practicality, but at the same time preserving the depth of the original Haskalah. It's really astounding. And if I were like a professor studying the Lubavitcher Rebbe's leadership, and all they would do is show me the Maimonim, and they would, and I knew nothing. Let's say I was an anthropologist from another time, another era, and I was just studying this, and I didn't know what the Rebbe actually did, and I just learned the Maimonim, and they said, now, what did the Lubavitcher Rebbe's disciples look like? I would think that they were oivdim, to use the Hasidic term. I would think these are people who are really, really deeply in touch with their internal world, really, really aware of what they're thinking and feeling, and really on top of their own weather, their own internal weather. That's what I would think. And then if you tell me, no, actually, he raised a generation of activists who are so involved in saving the world that many of them actually are out of touch with their own selves. Wow, how'd that happen? So I'm not here to bemoan the past. I'm here to say that Rebbe is about to have an aliyah on his yahrzeit, which means that all of his mukusharim are also being brought to a higher level. And I think it's time that we go to a higher level where we can, I'm going to say something naughty, but somebody said once, the biggest problem with getting frum people excited about Chabad, like the biggest obstacle to getting frum people turned on to Chabad, Lubavitchers. Because they look at Lubavitchers, they're like, well, I don't want to become that. We should be a model of what the Rebbe taught. like Shmuel Munkis wanted to hang in front of the Alter Rebbe's house to show what does the Alter Rebbe make. In front of the shoemaker, there's a big shoe hanging out front. So in front of the Rebbe's house should be a chassid hanging out front. Yes, we need to be activists. Yes, we need to be there. We need to be the first person who's going to show what you call the first responders. And that's really what Shluchim are, like in such an incredible way. First responders, available on call. I mean, it's called Chabad on call. I mean, it's not a name. It's literally on call, on top of things, just with such sensitivity and getting things done, just such a smart way. And we're great at that. We're really great at that. There's another half of the picture, though, that we need to work on. We really need to work on. And it's all there in the Rebbe's teachings. The Rebbe didn't neglect this part of us, God forbid. We neglected it.
Rabbi told Moshe that you need to know more self, not more Rabbi.
That's right. Famous Minor from Toshin Lamed Dalet. Moshe Yitzchok Hecht from New Haven wrote to the Rebbe and said, "Save me, Rebbe." The Rebbe said, "I got a guy to save you. He's called Moshe Yitzchok Hecht. Your problem is you never met the guy. Doesn't know him." So the Rebbe says, "Get to know him." So actually, Gavaldica is there in that mind. What the Rebbe says that you should meet Moshe. Moshe Yitzchok Hecht should meet Moshe Yitzchok Hecht. If you'll do that, then I think there is the B'meila Nishtan Yechil. Immediately, everything will change. Hamatzav Ruach, Habetachim Ba'Hashem, Simcha Yeyenis. But the one that blows me away is Habetachim Ba'Hashem. You hear that? You catch that? If you'll get to know yourself, you'll have more belief in God. It sounds so counterintuitive, but the Rebbe says, trust yourself more, be more in touch with yourself. That will lead to greater bitachon in Hashem. So sometimes the straight path to religious growth is personal growth. And if you believe you're a chelik alakami mal, mamish, so what's the difference between getting to know yourself and getting to know God? Mibsari achsa elaka. So there's another whole half of the Rebbe's program that I really would love to see initiated. And maybe the shluchim from this particular tchum of shlichus can be at the forefront of that. And I'm saying maybe because you guys stand to lose the quickest if you don't.
No pressure.
No pressure. Because you're on the front lines of real intense stuff. And if you don't have a self to go back to at the end of that, I won't even finish the sentence. But it's all there. It's all in the Rebbe's Sichos, Maimorim, and Igros. It's all there. Personal development, being in touch with our own thoughts and feelings, and understanding ourselves and the work that we need to do, and our growth, our weaknesses, our strengths. It's all there. And cannot be, I don't want to say in a negative way, it cannot be neglected anymore. Let me say it in a positive way. For Thomas, one of the things we can do, I think it's probably the call of the hour. Who the heck am I to say what the call of the hour is? But at least my humble opinion, for whatever it's worth, is that the call of the hour now is for Lubavitchers, especially for Shluchim, to step up and show how the Rebbe didn't only give us marching orders about how to save the world, but the Rebbe also gave us really caring and wise and intricate instructions on how to develop ourselves more fully, and that the two go hand in hand and they can't be separated, especially when you're dealing with such intense stuff like you guys are dealing with. Good? Yeah? Time's up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you know not to get into the pit? Don't put too much on yourself. Some people do
Right.
self-therapy and public,
Right.
and equally as damaged, they use a public platform to help someone else and give them therapy,
Right.
and that person is naked in public.
Right. Okay. So let me just do a general, I don't want to get into specifics. Sounds like you're trying to get specific. I don't want to get specific. Let's talk very generally. Going to either extreme is no good because we want the best of both worlds. The Rebbe always wants us to do both. So is it this or is it this? Yes. But Rebbe, you want me to daven or you want me to learn? Yes. But Rebbe, you want me to develop myself or you want me to help the world? Yes. You know why? Because a Yid, like the Eivishter, is nimna and a noise. Nothing's impossible, and we can be in two places at once. So we have to be able to do both. So the sign that we are neglecting our own personal development, our own avodah, is that we're using our shlichus as a distraction from our personal growth. Conversely, the sign that we're using personal growth as an excuse is that when that becomes our carte blanche to not be there for others when we could be. So we have to be sensitive to that balance, that they're not a contradiction. They're not that's what Chabad Soy is. That's what Shlishi is. It's not a contradiction. It seems like a contradiction. That's what 1 and 2 are. But the idea of Shlishi is to be machriya b'neihem and to show that there's no stira at all. So that I can be a developed person and be there for everyone. And in fact, by being a developed person, I'll be more there for everyone. And by being there for everyone, that also, by the way, is part of being a developed person. If I were talking to a different community with a different background, I would be blasting them from the very opposite direction. And I would be telling them, how are you going to be a Muslim? How are you going to achieve your shleimus if you're not Moshe Nefesh for Klal Yisrael? But to you guys, I'm hitting you from the other side. Just hit everyone. And then finally, we'll come to like the Rambam says, the middle. But the Rambam says the middle, like, balance. The Rebbe says the middle, like, best of both worlds. Kava and Tzoy, it's koil, everything. We can have everything. We can have ruchnius and gashmius and infinite and finite. Yeah.
I've always found that it's saying balance, which shows that there's two opposites.
Right.
This would be, like you said, it's a
Synthesis, yeah. Synthesis, yeah. Yeah. It's not balance. Tiferes is not balance. Chassidus always explains Tiferes is not that you get just the right amount of chesed, just the right amount of gvura. Tiferes is its own thing, which is big enough, and that's what the definition of Kavim Tzoy is Oila Kolona. It's big enough to be koilel, pure chesed without chesed being less chesed than chesed, and pure gvura without gvura being less gvura than gvura. Neither of them have to dilute themselves or back down in order to be harmonized, because that's the nature of Shlishi. Shlishi has room for the opposites because we're infinite. That's basically, that's the Shita is that we're infinite and we have room for opposites. So we can be activists and we can be people who are in touch with our emotions. Yeah.
I just want to ask you one question. I don't want you to answer that the answer is the whole Chassidus and the Rebbe's Torah and the Rebbe's Chassidus. If we want to all turn out and continue on our self-development in the way that we can be able to help people. Exactly. I don't need to tell me all the Maimarim, and I don't need to say, open a Tanya, read it from the beginning, and you learn Chitas. I don't want to hear this answer. If everyone wants to come out of here with an opinion, which shir of Rabbi, I want to know which shir should we listen to from Rabbi Taub? Which Maimar should we learn? Which Igris? Don't say the whole Igris has all the answers.
Well, why don't you like that answer?
Because I'm an American. I mean, actually not, but but right, we're a different generation. So if I want to laser focus on something that's going to help me in my self-development.
You're saying, don't tell me that it's the whole Chassidus. Tell me which page. Give me a page number.
No, you can give 2 pages, a chapter.
But here's what I want to tell you. A cup coming the shturuf stellar. A person doesn't get what they don't get. Let me say that again. A person doesn't get what they don't get. You can send somebody to a life-changing mimer, and every mimer is a life-changing mimer, and they can even chazer back to you exactly what it said on the page, and it won't change their life.
What changed your life?
Realizing that the Rebbe has a mahalach, a derech of limud. Realizing that, by the way, on Sunday, I'm coming back to Chassidus. I'm going to be in New Jersey at a Chabad house, but Sunday I'm coming back here and there's a Mitzvah Torah Kinus. And I think one of the sessions I'm doing is how to teach Chassidus to Balabatim, and basically it's going to be a bait and switch because I'm going to say, well, first teach it to yourself, because if you're not connecting with it, how are you going to fool everyone else? What? That's the page number. So the answer really is what changed and changes me is realizing that Rebbe has an approach. And a lot of times Chassidim are afraid to speak this way. I don't know why, just they think it's disrespectful. They think it's more respectful to say that Rebbe's Torah is so holy that we can't understand it. Like that's a compliment. If you learn properly, you can read the first 2 lines of a letter in Igris, and 90% of the time you can guess the direction that was going to go. I'm not saying you're going to predict all the amount of kindness that Rebbe will bring, but even sometimes a little bit that too.
Right, but you can learn a mimer and you can learn 100 mimarim, and you won't be able to predict it, and you were
Yes,
able
you
to
can.
translate the whole
Yes,
thing.
you can, and that's what I'm telling you. You find a mimer that you haven't learned before. You learn the first ois, which by the way is very formulaic. The Rebbe's style is very formulaic. 90% of the time, the first ois of a mimer, the Rebbe will take a mimer from most often from the Frierdiker Rebbe, but very often it'll be from the other Rebbeim, and perhaps even Maimonim from several Rebbeim, and to make contrasts in textual differences, almost like a professor of Chassidus looking at this body of work of 7 generations of Chassidus, and the Rebbe will ask textual questions and then pivot to some type of a general understanding question, which then always ends up with some type of a punchline of Nimna noise, of infinity, best of both worlds. So you can pretty much predict when the Rebbe will say, basically, every mimer that Rebbe says in this mimer this, it says in this mimer that. Which one is it? And then the punchline of the mimer is, it's both, it's everything. And if you learn it properly, you'll even understand how to experience that for a minute in your life. So it's really the Rebbe has a mahala. And by the way, it's not, you mentioned like Tanya. Tanya doesn't work if you don't learn it the way the Rebbe taught you to learn Tanya. I met so many people learn Tanya. It's a different book. If you don't learn Tanya from Likutei Sichos, it's a different book. So it's not about what, it's about how. The Rebbe gave us a derech halimud. It's like when you learn a Rashi Sikha. Well, maybe not one Rashi. Let's say you learn 3, 4 Rashi Sikhs, which I don't even like Rashi Sikhs. I'm going to admit that. It's very hard for me. I can't.
Okay, so I'm scratching that off my list.
But
We're narrowing it down.
But I'm not you. The Rebbe said the Torah was given in a midbar because in order to transmit Torah, the teacher has to realize that he has to make the teaching experience a blank slate, like a wilderness. And the Rebbe actually says the fault of many mashpiyim is that they impose their personality on their teachings. Meaning they try to make their student follow their mold. So just because I don't like Rashi Sikhos doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
So you're basically
But
saying,
anyway, I was in the middle of saying before. You learn 3 or 4 Rashi Sikhos, and you will never look at any Rashi in Chumash the same again. I don't even like it because I'm not good at that, but I learned enough of it that I realized certain klolim, like if it says the Bala Memra, my ears will perk up. Like, oh, why does it say? Why does it say the name of that guy? Why does it say the name of that Amoida? Right? There's different klolim of Rashi. The point is, you learn 3, 4 Rashi Sikhos, and you will not be able to learn Chumash Rashi the same way ever again. It just changes the way you see it. So too, the Rebbe has a derech halimud, not just about Chumash Rashi, but about life. So if you learn the way the Rebbe approaches a concept in Chassidus in a mimer, or a life problem in an Igris, you'll never be able to see those things the same way again. So it's really not about what, it's about how. It's not about yedias, it's about das. The Rebbe said, like, the Rabbi had a moyim shnin, that it was in a few diukim. Koy means to stand up. Stand up means to be able to innovate, to think for yourself. The Rebbe didn't want people who just quote him. The Rebbe said, oh, what do you say, Rabbi? I'm listening to you. That's first of all. But also the Rebbe was medayik, daitoi, not de'esav. The deis of the Rav means we know the Rav's opinions. The das of the Rav means the mind that he uses to come to the opinion. So that a chassid knows how to think like the Rebbe. Listen, maybe the old style of bittul was, who the hell are you? But what's it? What's the word? Kadeshim to you, bitmia, or binchusa, right? So it's like you can be yachol kamei, right? Yachol kamei, bitmia, yachol kamei, binchusa, yachol kamei. The Rebbe says, yeah, I'm saying it on video. Show it to the whole world. I don't care. Call me crazy. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that every single Jew is a tzaddik, and whatever that includes. Whatever that includes. So, Ruach HaKodesh, if you need Ruach HaKodesh, everyone has Ruach HaKodesh today. Navi, Ruach HaKodesh, whatever. It's all available. It's all available today. There are no limits. We have access to it all. A chassid is supposed to know how the Rebbe thinks. When you open up your mouth, you should have enough bittul to say, I'm going to say now what I think the Rebbe would have said. And if you're not willing to do that, that's arrogance.
And if you're formulating it and saying it, the Rebbe said, very often you're misrepresenting. If it's pre-planned, etc. That's what you're saying, basically.
If it's pre-planned, Mendel Futerfas said, every mashpia gives two fabrengens, the one that he planned and the one that actually happened. So you have to plan. You always have to prepare for a shear. But if you're really mitzamtzim, the fiat keli, which a mashpia has to be sensitive to what the makabel actually wants. So you can't come and ram your agenda down anyone's throat. You can't come and say, well, this is what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, but that's not what they were ready to hear. If you go with the flow. You come into a room, let's go back to what we're in Yanenu. You come to a room where something's going on, it's rather intense. What, you're going to come in with a whole new agenda, a whole new energy. It's very upsetting. It's disturbing. It's not pleasant. You're not helping anyone. You got to come in and fit in. But you're fitting in a way where your fitting in is bringing clarity and certainty and ein simcha kataras hasfeikus to the situation. And you do that because the Rebbe gave you a mind that knows how to see that. It's not enough. I'm sorry. No, it's not enough that a Lubavitcher Yunga man knows how to stand on the street corner with his tefillin. That's beautiful. That's necessary. That's vital. Yes, that's half of it. You have to be able to stand on the street corner with your tefillin, 100%. But that's only half of his kashrus. The other half is if somebody comes to you and says, I'm going through a hard time and I'm confused and I don't even know what to think. You should be able, right on the spot, to give them a Yechidus experience with the Rebbe, to bond with them, to connect to them, to say truth, God's truth, back to them with clarity and confidence and certainty. Because you're the Rebbe Shliach, Shal Adam Kamaisa. Kamaisa. Not just to put tefillin on people, but to reflect the truth back to them. Gimel Tammuz, we have an opportunity. That is having another aliyah. He's not going far from us, God forbid. He's lifting us. We're going up with him. The American agenda didn't get finished. We didn't do it yet. It's still very Russified. And we need to The Rebbe wanted Chassidim who think, who are creative, who are innovative, who are original. One of the egos that we learned from Chelik Dalit, the shir that I gave for Hachana V'Yadal Nissen. The Rebbe was writing to someone who says they want to get involved in Chabad activities. They want the Rebbe to tell him, they want the Rebbe to tell him what to do. So the Rebbe says, I'm not al-Assad. I'm not there. Isn't that beautiful? Like the guy's ready. Rebbe, I wanted this is 1950. What year the Haley Dollar? I think 1955. So he's ready. Rebbe, I want to do Chabad activities. What do I do? Like send me the template. The Rebbe was like, I'm not there. I don't know. You figure it out. You figure it out. By the way, what does it mean, al-Assad? Al-Assad doesn't just mean in a country or in a city. It means exactly what we're talking about. If I prepare a vort before I walk into the hospital room, 99.9% odds I'm not going to use that vort if I'm actually sensitive to what's going on there. Al-Assad means I'll find out what the appropriate reaction when I get there. Because I don't know what the energy is going to be until I walk in the room. All I know is that I have to be transparent and selfless and clear, put the ego aside. I have to be a clear conduit, like the Rebbe, because I'm the tzaddik. The Rebbe made me the tzaddik. The tzaddik means bittul b'tachlis, just to be a clear conduit for Elokus. So now I know I have to show up in that manner, not to try to force an agenda, not to try to say something smart, but I don't know what the energy is going to be till I get there. And I have to be flexible enough to move with the waves. The Rebbe's vision of a chassid is greater than the Chassidim's vision of a Rebbe. What the Chassidim think the Rebbe is, the Rebbe thinks of a chassid more. Okay. Good. Huh?
How does this idea of the ultimate self fit with the line of the
Oh, about not thinking too much about yourself because you're busy with the work. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And to fill your days means to fill your days with doing good things. And definitely there is that part, like I said, noise. There is that part of just stop thinking about yourself and go do something productive. And there are people who need to hear that message. That message was well received. It's funny, like half of the Rebbe's message was always like, the Rebbe could get halfway. It's like, whenever they call me to talk about parenting to Lubavitchers, I always say, we know how to parent. Just whatever you would do for Kevin and for Todd, you do for Mendel and Yossi. You already know how to do it. So we know how to have Abbas Yisrael. For Yemen, but not for our kids, not for ourselves. Yeah, for sure. There's such a concept of get out of your head and go get busy, service. But there's also a concept of deep reflection and study and thought. And by the way, how would you even know that concept unless you'd spent time learning a mimer, which itself is an introspective process of understanding something, internalizing it. So it's like I was thinking the other day, the mimer Nochal that I was speaking about Midas and Nitzach, about Netzach, and that our door, we just get the job done. We don't have thinking, we don't have feeling, we're just doers. And I was thinking, well, if that's true, why is this mimer so complicated? Because there's a whole depth of haskalah that you need to come to the conclusion that we're not such deep people. So again, noise. It's like the Rebbe wants
You gotta do
both.
demolition, but also construction.
demolition and construction. Yeah. And nothing's a stira. Nothing's a stira. And nothing's an obstacle.
Demolition, leave it
Right.
as,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good Shabbos.
All right.
Thank you very much. It's done. Thank you, everyone. The Chavez.